Welcome to the Elektron Digitakt Iceberg. This is the third entry on my Iceberg series, and this time I'm covering an amazing device that is loved by so many people, the Digitakt. This is going to be a long one, so I'm not going to take much of your time. Let's jump right on it. Level 1. The tip of the iceberg. What is the Elektron Digitakt? The Digitakt is a digital drum machine and sampler first released by Elektron in 2017. It has been designed to make beats, sequence external gear, and to perform live. It has 8 audio tracks and 8 MIDI tracks, which can be sequenced individually. It has 1 GB of storage space in its plus drive. It also has 64 MB of RAM for the loaded project. This translates into around 11 minutes of sample time. The samples are in mono, not stereo. It has 2 audio input ports, which it can be used to sample. They can also be used to route external audio from other devices in real time and take advantage of its internal compressor, for example. It can also resample its own audio. It has USB audio as well, so it can receive and send audio through USB. The Digitakt was discontinued in 2024, replaced by the Digitakt 2. The different versions. The Digitakt has 3 different versions. The original release in 2017 had a charcoal colored case with a matte finish. The Black Edition, released in 2021, was a refresher that introduced a black colored case with a more glossy finish. The function button and the font used on the faceplate was also more saturated orange. Besides that, this version had a smaller power supply and a different box. This change was part of a general refresher done by Elektron on its product line at the time. Finally, there is the E25 Remix. This version was released in 2023 and sports a hand-built case in stainless steel. It was individually numbered and also had the laser-etched logo. As a bonus, the packaging included a mixtape cassette with music made by the Elektron team. Note that the changes are all cosmetic. The hardware is the same in all versions. Workflow. The Digitakt uses a project system for organization. Each project can contain 127 samples with around 11 minutes of total time, 128 patterns divided in 8 banks, and a sound pool of 128 sounds. I'll explain these topics further down the iceberg. Overbridge. Overbridge is a piece of software created by Elektron that integrates some of its products directly with a computer using USB audio. This means that you don't need an audio interface to record your Digitakt audio. Basically, it sends the audio tracks to your computer and allows using the Digitakt with a VST or AU plugin in your DAW. The VST also allows you to change the parameters for each track, just like you can on the hardware. As a bonus, it can also send the audio from the audio input ports to the computer, making it an audio interface itself. This is an amazing feature of the Digitakt that is not very common in hardware gear. The software is available for Windows and Mac OS. Elektron Transfer. There is also another piece of software made by Elektron called Transfer. This software, as the name implies, allows you to transfer data between the computer and Digitakt. Here's some of the things that you can do with this software. You can send audio files to the Digitakt to be used as samples, and these are converted automatically to the Digitakt's native format. You can manage projects, sounds, and samples. You can backup and restore projects, and you can upload SysEx files, so you can use new sound packs or update the product's firmware, for example. This software is available for Windows and Mac OS. The Elektron Sequencer. You probably already heard about Elektron's famous sequencer. It is one of, if not the most significant reason why the Digitakt and other Elektron devices are so loved. So much so that it's viewed by many as a conversion. It has a cult following. But jokes aside, the Elektron Sequencer really deserves all the praise it gets, as it does many things that other hardware sequences can, and in a very hands-on and immediate way. Here are some of its features. Parameter locks, or P-locks, allow you to lock any parameter on a per-step basis. With conditional trigs, you can set conditions for when a step is triggered. For example, you can set a step to only be triggered on the 3rd loop, or set it with a 50% probability. Micro timing allows you to nudge individual steps by very small amounts. LFOs allow you to modulate nearly any parameter of the track, and you can have 2 per audio track. Each track can have independent lengths. Besides this, the sequencer was designed for live performances, with its fill mode, quick mutes, and on-the-fly copy and pasting operations for steps, parameter pages, and whole patterns. I'll dive deeper into these topics later on, but as you can see, it goes way beyond the typical node on, node off of normal sequencers. Level 2, just below the surface. Firmware updates. One of the first things that you should do when buying a Digitakt is to check its firmware version. This is because firmware updates have introduced new features that help the Digitakt achieve its iconic status. To do so, you will need the Elektron Transfer software. After connecting the Digitakt to the computer, open Transfer. Then, set Digitakt as MIDI in and MIDI out in the connection dialog box and click Connect. Download the OS file from Elektron support page, and then drag and drop it to the drop section of Transfer. The Digitakt will ask you if you want to initiate the OS update. Tap Yes to start it. At the time of recording, the latest firmware version was 1.52a. Data entry knobs. The Digitakt has a group of 8 encoders labeled from A to H. These are called the data entry knobs. They control the parameters found in the different pages or sections of the Digitakt. Sounds and sound pool. Sounds and sound pool are concepts used by the Digitakt. A sound is a sample and all its related parameters such as filter, amplitude, and LFO settings. Sounds can be stored in the internal plus drive sound library. A sound pool is a group of sounds used by a project. Each sound pool can have a maximum of 128 sounds. To add a sound to the sound pool, press Function and Song Mode to open the Import-Export menu. Song Mode is the key with the 3 dots. Select Manage Sounds, and this will open the Sound Manager. Select the sound you want to copy and press Yes. Note that you can select multiple sounds at the same time. Then, press Right and select Copy To. Select Sound Pool and press Yes. To select a sound to be used in a track, select a track you wish to use and press Function and Level Data. Scroll and select the sound you want. Note that you can use Function and Yes to preview a sound. If it's the one you want, press Yes to load it. Audio track pages. In the Digitakt, the different sample parameters are divided by sections. In Elektron terminology, these sections are called pages, and each one of them has a dedicated key right below the data entry knobs. Also note that each of these pages have more than one screen with options. This can be accessed by tapping the page button more than once. There are 5 pages. Trig controls parameters related to trigs. Note sets the pitch of the note when triggered. Velocity will change its velocity when triggered. Length will set the length of the note trigger. Probability sets the probability that the trigs on the track will play or not. If you select a particular step, this specific option changes to condition, and any changes to the probability here will only affect the selected trigger. We will expand on this later. Finally, filter trigger and LFO trigger define if the filter envelope or LFO will be triggered or not. Source controls the playback of samples. The parameters seen here are dependent on the machine used, and I'll expand on this later. The default, which is one shot, allows changing the tuning, play direction, bit reduction, sample used, also the start point, the length and loop point, and also the volume level of the specific sample used. Filter controls the multimode filter and its envelope. In page 1, you'll find controls for the attack, decay, sustain, and release of the envelope. You can also change the frequency and resonance of the filter, and also change its type between low pass, high pass, and EQ. Note that the EQ settings range from 1 to 5, and these signify 5 points in the frequency range of the sound. This is helpful in case you want to boost low frequencies, for example. Finally, you can also change the envelope depth, which controls the amount of cutoff frequency modulation from the filter envelope. This modulation can be positive or negative. Page 2 controls the base width filter and the envelope delay. The base width filter is basically a high pass and a low pass filter that you can use at the same time. Use this filter for permanent changes to the sound, and the main filter for more performative actions. You can also adjust the amount of sample rate reduction, or SRR, of the sample, and if it should be done before or after the filters in the signal flow by using the pre and post values of the route parameter. Amp sets the amplitude envelope, overdrive, effects, panning, and volume. Attack, hold, and decay affect the amp envelope stages. The hold value controls the length of the hold stage of the envelope. If you select a value between 0 and 126, you will specify a specific length, and the envelope will always follow that length. On the other hand, if you select note, the hold stage will be determined by how long a note is held. Overdrive controls how much distortion is introduced to the sound. Delay and reverb are effects that can be added to the signal. Panning determines where the sound is placed in the stereo field. And volume determines the volume of the sound, and it's independent of the track level. LFO, or low frequency oscillator, can be used to modulate parameters found in the other pages. Each audio track can have two LFOs affecting different parameters. Page 1 controls LFO 1. You can set the speed and the multiplier of the speed of the LFO. If you want to sync the LFO to the beat, use 8, 16, or 32 as a speed value. For example, a multiplier of 32 and a speed of 32 will make the LFO run at 1/8. You can also set the fade in or out of the modulation. The knob is bipolar, so positive values will provide a fade out and negative values will provide a fade in. A value of 0 nullifies the fading. Destination determines what parameter is affected by the modulation. Wave sets the type of wave that it's used. You can use a sine, a triangle, a square, a sawtooth, or random waveforms. And you can also use exponential and ramp. Phase sets where the LFO is triggered in the wave cycle. Mode defines how the LFO will act when a note is triggered. Free is a default and means that the LFO will run continuously, never restarting or stopping even if notes are triggered. Trigger will make the LFO restart when a note is triggered. Here are the available options. Hold makes the LFO play freely in the background, but whenever a note is triggered, the LFO level is frozen until the next note is triggered. 1 means the LFO starts when a note is triggered, then runs until the end of the waveform and then stops. This makes the LFO act like an envelope. Finally, with half, the LFO starts when a note is triggered, then runs until the middle of the waveform. When it reaches halfway, it stops. The last parameter is depth, and it determines how deep the modulation should go and also its polarity. The second page of LFO controls LFO 2, and it has the same options as LFO 1. MIDI track pages. The MIDI tracks also have pages, and these have their own specific settings. They are accessed the same way as audio pages. The Trig page controls what and how the MIDI notes are played. You can choose a root note in note 1, and then in note 2, 3, and 4, you can select additional notes to make chords. Note that if you change note 1, or the root note, notes 2, 3, and 4 will be transposed accordingly. Velocity sets the velocity of the notes, and length sets the note length. Length can be set as infinite if you wish. Probability sets the probability of a note being triggered on the track. Just like the audio trigger page, if you select a particular step, this changes to condition. Finally, LFO trigger defines if the LFO should be triggered or not. The source page is used to set up the MIDI information for the track. Channel defines a MIDI channel that the track should send data to. Bank lets you send a bank change message. SBNK sends a sub-bank change message. Prog sends a program change message. PB controls pitch bend. AT sends aftertouch data. MW sends mod wheel data. And finally, BC sends breath control data. To activate any of these parameters, you will need to hold function and then press the respective encoder. Then you can change the values. The filter and amp pages are used together to set CC values for CC commands. CC, or continuous controller, is a type of MIDI message that allows for one device to control parameters on another device remotely. Each MIDI track can control up to 8 parameters on the target device. To set up the controllable parameters, go to the amp page and use the data entry knobs to select the CC number for the different slots. You will need to look up the MIDI implementation chart of the target device in order to find the right CC numbers. Also note that the controllable parameters are locked to the MIDI channel previously selected. This means that you cannot control multiple devices on the same track. Additionally, if you have a device that uses multiple MIDI channels, such as the circuit tracks where each track has a specific channel, you will need to find the right channel as well. On the other hand, if you need to control more than 8 parameters, nothing stops you from setting up multiple MIDI tracks with the same MIDI channel and setting up additional CC commands for each. To control the parameters, access the filter page and use the respective knob. Note that you will need to use function and the respective knob to activate it. Finally, the LFO page is pretty much the same as the audio tracks LFO page. The only difference is that the destinations are now related to the MIDI information that you set up before. This means that you can modulate the CC commands you have set up in the AMP page, for example. Also, there's only one LFO for MIDI tracks instead of the 2 that you find in audio tracks. Secondary pages. Below the pages' keys, you'll find labels for the secondary pages. These can be accessed by holding function and pressing the respective key. Quantize sets the quantization globally or for each track. Quantization basically defines how close to standard timings a triggered note should be. If 0, notes will be played in the exact timing they were recorded. As you increase quantization, recorded notes will become more and more in time with the sequencer timing. Assign changes the machine type for the audio track, and we'll discuss this later. Delay and reverb specify the settings for these effects for the selected pattern. We will also talk about this later in their own entry. Finally, master contains sections for the compressor, internal mixer, and external mixer. We'll expand on these later on as well. Function key. The function key is the only colored button in the Digitakt, in orange. With it, you can access secondary functions of the keys, usually labeled right below them. Here are some other uses for the function key. You can use function and up or down to move faster in lists and menus. You can also press function in the name entry menu to access the letter table and select letters much quicker. In certain parameters, you can hold function and twist the knob to jump to specific positions. These can be time sync values or specific semitone values, for example. Internal mixer. The internal mixer allows you to adjust the volume level of all 8 audio tracks at the same time. To get to it, press function and LFO twice to get to the second section of the master page. External mixer. The external mixer is where you adjust the audio that comes in through the audio input ports. To get to it, press function and LFO 3 times to get to the third section of the master page. You have the option of using the audio input separately if you want. This is called dual mono. To activate it, use the level data knob to change the dual option. If, on the other hand, you have a stereo device you want to use, deactivate this option. In the other options, you can set the panning of the input and add delay or reverb to it. Sampling. The Digitakt has great sampling capabilities. You can sample audio coming from the audio inputs through USB and even from its own internal audio. Press the sampling key to access the sampling menu. Start by setting the source. Use the respective encoder to change between input, main, USB, and track 1 through 8. Input records audio from the audio inputs in the back. Main records the Digitakt's own internal audio. USB records audio coming in from the USB connection. For each, you have the option to record the left, right, or left and right channels together. Finally, selecting track 1 through 8 records the audio coming in from that specific audio track. RLEN sets the recording length. The default is max, which records up to 33 seconds, but you can use this to limit the length to a number of steps. This is useful in case you want to record a loop, for example. ARM and THR are meant to be used together. Arming the device means that when you press record, it will wait until the audio reaches a specific volume threshold. This threshold is set by the other option I mentioned, THR. Use this in case you want to sample another instrument that you need to play and want to avoid having to cut the silence at the start. If you just want to record, then press function and yes, and it will start right away. Then use yes to stop the recording. Finally, Mon is the monitoring setting. Setting it to yes means that you will hear the incoming audio from the inputs. If you are already hearing the audio through the external mixer, then this option might be a little confusing. When this option is activated, the input audio is summed to mono and no external mixer effects will be heard. The live audio will also be stopped when the recording is finished and the trimming screen is shown. The external mixer will be deactivated until you switch off monitoring. After recording, you can use the encoders to trim the start and end of the sample. You can use the zoom encoders to help you with this too. After trimming, press yes to confirm or no to reset. Press function and yes to preview the sample. If you want the sample to loop, press left. When everything is good, press yes to save the sample. Name it to something you want, and then press yes again. After that, you can either select a track to load the sample in, or just press no if you don't want to assign it now. Effects. The Digitakt has 5 different effects that you can apply to the audio: delay, reverb, compressor, overdrive, and bit reduction. These are not all in the same place, nor they can be used in the same way. Delay and reverb can be added on a per track basis and also in the input audio. I've mentioned where you can add these to tracks before, but there are 2 specific pages where you can define the settings for these effects. Use function and filter to access the delay settings and function and amp to access the reverb settings. In the delay settings, you can set the delay time, activate ping pong, change the stereo width, and change the amount of feedback. In case you're wondering, ping pong means that the delay you hear will alternate in the stereo field. It's a cool effect, especially because the Digitakt is mono, so this adds some stereo back to the sample. Back to the delay page, you can also set the low and high pass filter for it, send the delay to the reverb, and also adjust the volume of the delay. In the reverb settings, you can change the pre-delay of the reverb, the decay, the frequency filter, and its gain. Use the decay to add a longer or shorter reverb. Long decays are great for transitions. The frequency filter and gain can be used to cut frequencies from the reverb, basically making it more or less noticeable. Like the delay, you can also have a low pass and high pass filter. The rev option has 2 settings, pre and post comp. This defines if reverb should be applied before or after the compressor. This can change how the reverb sounds together with the main signal. Try and see what you enjoy the most. And finally, volume sets the volume of the reverb. Here's something to note about reverb and delay. By default, their settings are set per pattern. This means that each pattern can have their own settings to make them stand out. However, if you'd like to have the same delay and reverb settings in all patterns for the project, you can activate an option in the settings to make them global. I will talk about this in another entry. The Digitakt contains another effect called compressor. A compressor compresses dynamic range of the signal. It reduces the volume of loud sounds relative to quiet sounds. This can basically glue your mix and make it sound more cohesive. In the Digitakt, the compressor is a master effect, meaning it will be applied to all of the audio together. To access it, press function and LFO once. To avoid going to a long tangent about how compressors work, I will just list the options. In this screen, you can adjust the threshold, attack, and release of the compressor. You can also change the makeup gain, the ratio, the overall volume, add a sidechain source and a sidechain filter, and adjust the dry and wet mix. But I don't want to leave you with just this dry information, so here are some tips. Be advised that I'm not a professional and I usually go with what sounds good to me. I find that having a threshold at 1/3 from the end with a fast attack and mid-release works well to get a slapping sound. Makeup gain allows you to gain back some of the volume that you lose due to compressing. I usually don't get too crazy with the ratio, 4 or 8 works well. And I also usually don't mess with the sidechain features as they tend to not sound that good to me. The dry and wet mix allows you to be like Hannah Montana and have the best of both worlds by having the compressed and uncompressed signals mixed. Don't sleep on the compressor. Make sure you experiment because it can make a huge difference in how good a beat sounds. Trust me. Also, just like delay and reverb, by default, the compressor is set per pattern, but you can change this and make its options global in the settings. Finally, overdrive and bit reducer are track effects, and they do not have many settings. In fact, they only have one, which is to set the amount. Either way, they can help give your sample a little bit of character. You'll find overdrive in the amp page. It will distort the sound. And bit reduction is labeled BR in the source page. It will reduce the resolution of the sample, making it more lo-fi. Volume levels. Technically, there are 3 different ways of adjusting the volume of an audio track. You can do it at the track level, at the sample level, and at the amp level. However, there are some considerations to have before choosing what specific parameter to use. According to the signal path, the first volume control in the chain is sample level. The sample level feeds the overdrive parameter. This means that if the sample level is low, the overdrive will not affect the sound that much. Sample level is also important in case you're using multiple samples on the audio track. Since different sounds may have different levels, you can use parameter locks to change the sample level depending on the samples used. This will stabilize the volume across all samples within the same track. The next volume parameter in the single path is amp level, which comes after overdrive. This will control how much volume is fed to the filter. Like overdrive, the volume level may change the character of the sound because of the filter. A more important aspect of the amp level is that it can be set independently of the effect sense. In practice, this means that, for example, if you want to adjust the volume of a track but still hear the delay or reverb, you will need to adjust the amp level. Track level is the last volume parameter. The internal mixer contains all track inputs, so you can adjust them all at the same time. You will also notice that most page screens have a level parameter on the far left. This is a track level parameter, the same as the one in the internal mixer. This is useful because you can quickly set the volume wherever you are using the level data knob. However, note that the track level will lower everything on that track, including the effect volume. This means that both the dry signal and the delay and reverb signal will be lowered. The benefit of using amp level instead of track level is that you can have a tail on the fade out of a track, which is nice to set up transitions and move between song parts. Tempo and swing. You can change the tempo and swing of a pattern in the tempo menu. To access it, press the tempo key. Then use the level data knob to change the BPM of the pattern. You can use up and down to change the tempo in fractional steps. Tempo can be set per pattern or globally. To adjust this, press Function and Yes. On the right side of the screen, you will find Swing. Swing adds variation to the rhythm so it sounds more organic. You can use the respective encoder to adjust it. Loading samples. If you wish to load a sample from your storage to a track, press the Settings key. Then scroll down and enter Samples. Use the arrow keys to select the sample you want to use and then press Yes. Note that you can use Function and Yes to preview a sample. Press Right and then select Load to Project. This will load the sample to the first available spot in the sample list. You can select multiple samples at the same time if you want. Then hold Track and select the trig of the track where you want to use the sample. Press Source and use knob D to scroll to the right sample and press the encoder again. And now you're done. Metronome. The Digitakt has a metronome, which you can use to be in time when you're live recording beats. To activate it, press Function and PTN, which means pattern. If you hold the same combination, you will open the metronome menu. Here, you can change the time signature, set pre-roll bars, and also adjust the volume of the metronome. In case you're wondering, the pre-roll bar setting sets how many bars the metronome will count before actually starting to record. Chromatic Mode. If you have a melodic sample, you can use Chromatic Mode to play it in different notes. To activate it, select the track that you want to use. Then, press Function and Track. This will enable a layout in the Trigs that imitates a piano. If you want to change octaves, press up or down. Import-Export. This menu allows you to manage the sounds on the Digitakt. You can access it in the settings, inside the pattern menu, or by pressing Function and Song Mode key. Use this menu to import sounds from the plus drive, export sounds, and also manage sounds, which will open a specific menu. We will discuss this menu in a later entry. Also, do remember that sounds are basically presets in the Digitakt world, and not the actual samples. Trigs. In this iceberg, you will hear a lot about trigs. Trigs are the steps in a sequence, and they trigger a specific sound. Recording a sequence. There are 3 ways to record a sequence. You can use grid recording, you can use live recording, and you can use step recording. In grid recording, you will add sample trigs using the steps in the sequencer. To use this method, just press record. Then, tap the steps where you wish to add the sample. To remove steps, just tap the key again. If your sequence is longer than 16 steps, use the page key to jump between sequence pages. Notice how the LED shows the page that you're currently editing. Here's a pro tip. You can press Trig and Yes to preview a specific step. And another pro tip, if you need to shift all of the steps forward or backward in the sequence, press Function and left or right. Next, we have live recording. In this mode, the trigs are added in real time. To use this mode, Hold record and press play. Notice how record flashes instead of continuously being lit. Now just tap the trigs for the tracks that you want to use. Any changes you make using the data entry knobs will also be recorded. If you activate Chromatic Mode, you will also be able to record the different notes played in real time. To delete steps, hold No and one or more of the track trigs. Steps will be deleted in real time as you hold these keys, so you can use this to delete just a portion or all of the sequence. To exit live recording and keep the sequencer playing, press play. Finally, we have step recording. In this mode, you'll insert notes by pressing the trigs. The sequencer will capture the note and automatically move to the next step. There are two sub-modes for step recording, standard and jump. Standard is activated by pressing record and stop. The record key will start double blinking. Now, press one of the 16 trigs to select the start point. The active step will be shown in green. You can use left and right to select the active step or skip steps. Now, use function in one of the 16 trigs to add a note trig on the corresponding track. If you want to change tracks, press track and one of the 16 trigs. You can also use chromatic mode in step recording if you wish. To remove a trig or add a rest, position the active step on the trig you wish to adjust and press No. That's it for standard mode. For jump mode, the length parameter on the trig page controls the note length of the trig you add and advances the active step forward according to that length. Everything else works the same way. Mute modes. Most drum machines have a mute feature. This feature allows you to mute a whole instrument or track while the others keep playing. This is a highly useful performative feature. To quickly mute on the Digitakt, hold function and press one of the 16 track trigs. You can also activate mute mode so the mute keys are always visible. To do this, press function and bank. However, the Digitakt has two different mute modes. Global mute mode mutes tracks in all patterns. This is the default mode, and you can tell that the Digitakt is in this mode if the keys are green during mute mode. Pattern mute mode only mutes the tracks in the active pattern. You can tell you're in pattern mute mode when the mute color is violet. If you want to activate the pattern mute mode, hold function and double press bank. In global mute, the mute settings are saved together with the project. In pattern mute, the settings are saved per pattern. Do note that you can use both at the same time. Stop and play. This will seem obvious, but you can use the stop button to stop playback. There's more to it though. If you press stop once, the delay and reverb will keep playing. However, if you double press stop, the effects will also quickly fade out. On the other hand, if you want to pause the sequence, you can press play while the sequence is playing. And when you press play again, the sequence will be resumed. Level 3. Mid-Iceberg. Machines. The Digitakt has several simple playback engines which it calls machines. These were not available at release. They were introduced in later firmware updates. The default machine is one shot, but there is also warp, repitch, and slice. Press function and source to open the machine menu and switch between them. One shot plays samples in a linear fashion. It has options to set the tune or pitch of the sample, and if it should be played normally in reverse or in a loop. BR or bit reducer changes the resolution of the sample for a more lo-fi feel. Samp is where you can select the sample to be used. STRT sets the start point of the sample, length sets the length, and loop defines the loop point when that option is selected. Finally, you can set the sample's volume level. If you press source a second time, you will see the waveform of the sample. You will still have access to the same parameters, so you can use this to have a visual aid in setting up start and loop points, for example. And another tip, if you hold source for a bit, you will be shown the name of the sample. The next machine is warp. This machine allows samples and loops to be automatically stretched to the tempo of the pattern. The available parameters are mostly the same, but there are 3 new ones. Seg means segment size. The time stretch of this machine works by dividing the sample into smaller bits. This parameter changes the size of those bits, from 1/8 to 1/32. Mode defines if these bits should be played in reverse, reverse loop, forward, or forward loop. And finally, bars sets the total duration of the sample measured in bars. The third machine is repitch. This machine also time stretches the samples, but it works by repitching the whole sample. This affects the length as well. Think of a vinyl being played. If you slow down the playback, the pitch will be lower and the length will also increase. The available parameters are a mix between one-shot and warp. Lastly, we have slice. Slice cuts your sample in chunks, which can then be played individually. This works well with full loops. The new parameters are slice, len, and grid. Slice sets the actual slice to be played. Selecting note here will let you use the Trigs in Chromatic Mode to play each slice. Len will set how many slices will play consecutively. And finally, grid sets how many slices the sample will be divided in. Note trigs versus lock trigs. You can insert two different types of trigs in a sequence, note trigs and lock trigs. Note trigs are the normal trigs that you insert in the sequencer to play a sound. The lock trigs are trigs that do not play sounds and only contain parameter lock information. For example, do you want to change the filter cutoff without having to add a note? Then you can use the lock trigger. To add a note trigger, just press one of the trigs. To add the lock trigger, hold function and press one of the trigs. You can tell them apart in the sequencer by their color. Note trigs are red, lock trigs are yellow. Pay close attention to this. This is an Easter egg, fellow. Also note that online you'll see people talking about trigless trigs. This is just another name for lock trigs. Parameter locks. Parameter locks are one of the most beloved features of the Digitakt sequencer. It allows for each step to have its own parameters. You can lock almost anything. You can even select a different sample per step. Parameter locks can be added in all recording modes. In grid recording and step recording modes, hold the trig and twist one of the data entry knobs on the different pages to lock specific values. You'll notice that the graphics for that particular parameter will become inverted, signaling that the parameter has been locked. To remove it, hold the trig again and press the data entry knob for the locked parameter. In live recording mode, you just need to turn the data entry knobs while the recording is happening, and the parameters will be locked as the sequence goes. To remove these locks, hold No and press the data entry knobs for the locked parameters. Conditional locks. You can apply conditional rules to trigs on a sequence to define if they should happen or not. For example, you can set a trig to happen only 50% of the time, or maybe to only happen in the second loop of the pattern, or maybe that it should only happen if the conditional trig before didn't happen. These rules are set using conditional locks. Setting a conditional lock is like setting a parameter lock. Go to the trig page and now hold the trig. You'll notice that the probability parameter is now condition. Now, use the D knob to change between the options. And watch out, because some of these get really complicated. Fill relates to the fill option, which we will discuss later on. This means that the trig will only happen when fill mode is activated. Pre is used when you want a trig to happen when the previous conditional lock was resolved to true. For example, you set one trig to happen 75% of the time, and the next trig has a pre-conditional lock. If the first trig happens, the second trig will also happen. If the first trig doesn't happen, then the second trig won't happen either. The next option is nay, which is like pre, but it affects different tracks. For example, track 1 has that trig with 75% of probability to happen. Track 2 has a trig with nay active that happens after the one in track 1. If the trig in track 1 happens, then the trig in track 2 will also happen. Do note that the track affected by nay is always the one before, and this behavior cannot be changed. The next option is first, which means that the trig will only happen the first time the pattern plays and not in subsequent loops. The next options are percentages, and this assigns a probability percentage for the trig to happen. The last options are numbers with a colon in the middle. These set if the trig should happen in a specific number of pattern loops. For example, with 1:2, the trig will happen the first time the pattern plays, and then on the third, and then on the fifth, and so on. This is because it's set to play once every 2 loops. For 2:4, it will play on the second loop every 4 loops. Note that some of these options have a line above them. This means that the condition is inverted. For example, a trig set with pre with a line above it will happen when the previous conditional lock does not happen. Settings menu. The settings menu can be accessed using its dedicated settings key. It is divided into submenus that control the different aspects of the Digitakt. Project lets you load, save, and manage projects. Samples open the sample manager, where you can load, unload, rename, and replace samples. A relevant option here is removing unused samples from RAM. In the Samples menu, press left and select View RAM. Now, press right and select Unused. Finally, select Unload. All samples that are not used in tracks will be removed from the project. Next, we have the Song menu, which lets you rename, erase, load, and save songs. We will talk about the song feature in another entry. In the Pattern menu, you can manage everything related to patterns. You can rename, erase, and save here. Additionally, you can load data from other projects. Note that you can save or load not only the whole pattern data together, but also specifically the kit data, meaning the sounds that this pattern uses, and the sequence data. You can also import and export sounds here. The last option of the Pattern menu is Audio Routing. This allows you to set the audio routings of the 8 audio tracks and 2 effects, delay and reverb, and this is set by pattern. If you highlight Route to Main, you can use the track trigs and filter and amp keys to select which track should go to the main out. Green means that they will be sent to main, and red means they won't. Disabled tracks will not be heard on the main out, but they will still be heard in overbridge. Send to effects works the same way, but here you define what tracks should be sent to the delay and reverb effects. Global setting defines if these settings should be set per pattern or for the whole project. If global setting is activated, the pattern menu will not show these options, and they will be in the main settings menu as their own entry. The next menu in settings is MIDI config. Here you can set many aspects of how MIDI works in the Digitakt, such as what data should be transmitted or received, the MIDI channels used by the different tracks, and how the ports should be used. After MIDI config, we have sysx dump. This is used to send or receive system-exclusive files. In this context, sysx files contain menu, project, pattern, and sound data. Use the send and receive options here to, for example, back up your data to a computer and vice versa. The receive function can also be used to install sound packs and individual sounds. Next, we have global audio routing. As mentioned before, this is different from the pattern audio routing, as it affects the Digitakt at a global level. It contains the same options as pattern audio routing, plus a few more. Int to main is used to define if audio should still be heard on the main and headphone ports when overbridge or a class-compliant device is being used. USB to main sets the amplification that should be applied to incoming USB audio. Finally, pre and post fader defines if audio over USB should be pre or post the track level setting. The next submenu, Global Effects and Mix, is very relevant. Here you can set particular features to be controlled globally on a per pattern basis. Finally, we have System. And here you can configure what USB connection type should be used, and you can also set if the LED backlight of the keys should be used and how bright the keys and screen should be. The option Remember Subpage makes it so that the Digitakt remembers the parameter page subpage that you last used, instead of always going in order. In the submenu, you can also upgrade the OS, you can format the plus drive, and check your storage stats. Song mode. The Digitakt has a song mode, which you can use to arrange patterns to be played in specific sequences. Each song can have up to 99 rows in length, and each project can have 16 songs. To create a song, press the key with the 3 dots, which is called Song Mode, and then Yes to access Song Mode. Then, press the Song Mode key again, and Right to access Song Edit. Here, you'll see a table divided by several columns. Column 1 is a song row that ranges from 1 to 99. Column 2 has the name of the row. You can name each row according to the song part, such as intro, verse, bridge, etc. Column 3 shows the pattern to be used. Column 4 is row repeat, or the number of times the specific row will be repeated. Column 5 is row length, which sets the length of the row in steps. The default value is the same as the pattern length. Column 6 is row tempo, which lets you specify the tempo for each row. By default, the song tempo and swing is the same as the tempo and swing of the selected pattern. Column 7 shows the current time and position of the playhead in the song arrangement. Finally, column 8 is row mute. It lets you mute the different tracks of the pattern on the selected row. This is useful in case you want to have direct control over when some of the elements should come in, or in case you're using the same pattern for multiple song parts. At the end of the table, there is always the end row. By default, the song is set to loop, but here you can set it to stop playback when it reaches the end. To add a row, press Function and down. To remove a row, press Function and up. Use the arrow keys to navigate between the different rows and columns. To edit one of the parameters, use the level data or data entry knobs. If you want to copy a row, select it and press Function and Record. Then, to paste it, press Function and Stop. If you want to play a song, press a Song Mode key and then Yes to access Song Mode. After that, press Song Mode and down and select a song that you want to play. Then, press Play. You can use Stop to stop the playback. If you press Play here, the playback will resume from where it was. If you press Stop twice and then press Play, the song will play from the top. You can use Function and Left during playback to loop the row that is currently being played. Press those keys again to stop looping the row. If you want to quickly exit song mode, you can select a pattern using Pattern or Bank and a trigger. This will select a pattern to be played and exit song mode. Plus Drive Sound Library. The Plus Drive Sound Library is the list of all sounds or presets in the storage space of the Digitakt. It can have up to 2048 sounds divided by 8 banks. The Plus Drive Sound Library is different from the sound pool. The Plus Drive library sounds are available to all projects, while the sound pool is contained inside each project and can only contain 128 sounds. On the other hand, it's only possible to sound lock sounds in the sound pool. Sound Manager. The Sound Manager is where you can import, export, rename, and tag the Digitakt sounds that exist in the Plus Drive Sound Library. To access it, press Function and the 3 dots key, and then select Manage Sounds. You will now see a list of sounds that exist in the Plus Drive Sound Library. Use Level Data or Up and Down to scroll through the list, and Trigs 9 to 16 to select a bank between A and H. You can preview sounds using Function and Yes. When you find the sound that you want to use, highlight it and press Right. It's also possible to select multiple sounds at the same time. Then you'll find several options. You can load the sound to the active track, you can copy the sound to the sound pool, Plus Drive, or one of the banks. You can rename and edit the tags of the sound, and tags are useful as you can search and filter specifically for tags. You can also delete, select all, or select unused. The toggle option enables or disables write protection for the selected sounds. And finally, Send SysEx sends the selected sound as SysEx data. On the other hand, if you press left on the sound list, you will see the sorting menu. And here, there are a lot of options as well. You can view the sounds available in the project's sound pool. You can view the sounds available in the Plus Drive. You can sort the files alphabetically or by slot number. And finally, you can filter using tags and search using text. Saving sounds. You can save the sound used in an audio track as a preset to be used in future projects. To do this, with the audio track active, press Function and the 3 dots key to open the Import-Export menu. Then select Export Sound. Select an empty slot, name it, and add useful tags. That's it. Sample Management. The Settings menu has a Simple section where you can manage everything related to the Digitakt samples. Here, you can use the arrow keys and Yes to highlight and open a directory. To quickly jump between directories, hold Function and press left or right. If you want to preview a sample, press Function and Yes. Press Yes on the samples that you want to take action, and then press right. In this menu, you can select all samples in the list, load the selected samples to available slots in the project, or delete them. You can also move the samples and create new directories. If you want to unload sounds, press left on the sample list. Then, select View RAM. All 127 sample slots will now be listed. You can now select the samples to unload. When you're done, press right and select Unload. It's also possible to replace a sample. To do so, follow the previous steps to unload, but select only one sample for the option to be available. Now, here's a pro tip. If you want a faster way to load samples to the project, open the source page and turn Knob D to open the sample list. Now head over to an empty slot and press Function and Yes. This will open the Samples menu. Now browse to the sample that you want to use and press Yes. Voila! Direct Sampling. There's a very quick way to sample without having to open the sampling menu. Just hold the sampling key and press Yes to arm the sampler. The key itself will turn yellow. If you want to start sampling manually, press Function and the sampling key. When recording, the sampling key will turn red. Press Function and Sampling again to stop sampling. The sampling key will now turn dark red while it normalizes the sample, and green when it's done. You can also cancel the sampling by pressing Sampling and No. Copy, paste, and clear. it's possible to copy, paste, and clear patterns, tracks, track pages, and trigs. However, the way to do each of these operations is sometimes convoluted. Let's go step by step for each. To copy a pattern to another slot, make sure that the sequence is stopped. Then, press Function and Record. Now, select another pattern and press Function and Stop. That's it. Function and Play clears all trigs in the current pattern. If you want to copy or clear a single track, activate Grid Recording first. Then, repeat the previous steps. You can even copy a specific parameter page. And to do this, just select the parameter page that you want to copy. Then, use the respective page key, for example filter, source, amp, or any other, hold that key, and press Record to copy. Now, go to the track where you want to paste this information. Hold the page key again, and press Stop to paste. You can also clear using page key and play. If you want to copy trigs, activate Grid Recording. Now, hold the trig that you want to copy and press Record. Then, hold the target trig and press Stop to paste. All trig data, including parameter locks, will be pasted. Additionally, if you hold the trig and press play, only the locks will be cleared. And here's a very useful pro tip. You can undo any copy, paste, and clear operation by repeating the same key press. Remember this. Keyboard and note scales. If you long press Function and Track, you will open the Keyboard Setup menu. This is where you can manage the keyboard using Chromatic Mode. For example, this is where you can set the note scale for the keyboard and the root note. You can also set the octave and activate Keyboard Fold. Keyboard Fold condenses the keyboard, so instead of showing a normal piano layout, it will only list the keys that can actually be played according to the selected scale. This option is also very useful when the slice machine is used, since the slices will appear sequentially. Sequence scale. You might see scale written underneath the page button. This confused me at first, but this is not related to note scales. This is where you set the pattern step length. Press Function and Page to open this menu. The default is 16 steps, but you can select up to 64 steps. They also don't need to follow any particular measure. You can select 10 steps, for example. This is great to create polymeters. You also see a scale setting. This adjusts the speed of the sequence. You can use scale to have more than 64 steps in a sequence. For example, if you set the scale to be at half speed, you'll have 8 bars instead of 4 bars. However, do keep in mind that this also changes the step resolution, meaning you will not be able to be as precise when adding steps in grid recording mode. You can get around this by recording in live recording mode without quantization. If you want a quicker way to change length, you can use the page key to change the total length of the pattern, and then the trigs to change to specific step numbers. The pattern length can also be set per pattern or per track. Press Function and Yes to change this option. Per track has 2 more options, change length and master length, which are meant to control global pattern settings. Master length controls how many steps should the pattern have before restarting. You can set this to infinite, so the loop never restarts. And if you have polymeters, this can be useful to create sequences that are always evolving. Change length controls how long the pattern will play before a chained or queued pattern begins playing. This is off by default, but this option is important in case you set master length to be infinite, for example. If your master length is infinite and you do not set the change length, you will not be able to change patterns, because this one will be playing forever. And here's another tip. If you plan on using track lengths longer than 64 by using the scale option, do not forget to also set the master length accordingly, or else the pattern will restart prematurely. Nudging. You can nudge tempo by 10% temporarily by holding the left or right keys in the main interface screen. You can use this if you want to manually sync to a turntable, for example. Then, just let go of the key to go back to the normal tempo. Tap tempo. You can tap tempo manually by pressing Function and the tempo key to the rhythm. Pattern chains. Chains is a sort of rudimentary song mode. You can use this feature to link patterns together to be played sequentially. Select a bank, then hold pattern and select the first pattern of the chain. Now, release the pattern button, but keep holding the trig for the first pattern. And while you're holding this trig, select the different patterns that you want to play in the chain. You can select the same pattern multiple times if you want. And it's also possible to select patterns from different banks. If you want to select the first pattern again to be played, just hold some other pattern that you've selected and select the first pattern again. When you're done, just press play and that's it. You can create chains with up to 64 patterns. And if you access song mode after creating a chain, you'll be able to create the song using that chain as a base. Note that the chain will be active until you press stop more than 3 times. If you do so, you will go back to the initial pattern. Control All. Control All is perhaps a little known feature of the Digitakt that lets you control a specific parameter in all audio tracks at the same time. For example, you can adjust the delay on all tracks, or the filter, or something else. To do this, just hold track while adjusting a parameter. To undo the change, before you let go of track, press No. This can be great for transitions or breakdowns. Class-compliant device. The Digitakt is a class-compliant device, or plug-and-play. This means that it doesn't require specific drivers to work. Because of this, you can use it with a computer or even a smartphone, for example, both to send and receive audio over USB. Elektronauts Forum. The Elektronauts Forum is the main hub for everything related to Elektron devices. Here, you can talk about your device, learn about bugs or hidden features, and check out quirky use cases from other users. Go check it out. No streaming from disk. Unlike its bigger brother, the Octatrack, the Digitakt unfortunately does not have a CF card slot, so you cannot stream samples directly from a card. It also can't stream from its internal storage either, meaning each project is limited to 64 megabytes of RAM for samples. Level 4. Deep Waters. ELK-HERD. ELK-HERD is a third-party project manager for the Digitakt. It's a web page, so you don't have to install anything. It connects via web MIDI to your Digitakt, and here's some of the things that you can do with it. You can manage samples, you can do project management, including reordering of patterns. You can also reorder the sample pool and the sound pool, and you can find unused items and check what samples and what sounds each pattern uses, and vice versa. You can also do project archiving, meaning that you can save and restore projects, and you can also import patterns from one project to another, pulling in the required samples and sounds in the process. It's completely free, and the link will be in the description. Digitone and Digitakt pairing. The Digitone is another Elektron box. It's basically an FM synth with the same sequencer features as the Digitakt. Because of this, it greatly complements the features that the Digitakt lacks. But perhaps one of the coolest features is that if you switch patterns in one, the other one will also follow. Imagine the possibilities. External keyboard. You can use an external MIDI keyboard to play samples chromatically and record notes in the sequencer. And you don't even need to activate Chromatic Mode in the Digitakt to do so. Sound packs. You can install sound packs in your Digitakt to have access to more sounds. You can find these online, both from Elektron and from third parties. You can use Elektron Transfer to install these packs. Startup menu. The Digitakt has a startup menu meant to test and reset the device. You can access it by holding Function while powering on the Digitakt. Use Test to test your unit, Empty Reset to delete all patterns and sounds but keep the plus drive data, and Factory Reset to erase everything back to factory spec. Do note that Factory Reset deletes all data but the project in slot 0, and you can use this to keep one of your projects and delete everything else. Linear and random locks. The Slice machine has a very helpful feature that lets you add linear and random locks. If you add Trigs to a Slice machine sequence and then press Yes, the Allocate Slice menu will be shown. You can choose Create Linear Locks or Create Random Locks. The first will add slices of the sound to each trig in a linear way. The second will add slices randomly. The first is useful in case you have a loop slice. Add trigs on the beat and then add linear locks to have them played as they should. The second option is great to have happy accidents. This is when a cool sequence is brought to you by accident and you get that strong dopamine kick. Every time you press yes on this option, a new randomization appears. Randomization. You can randomize all parameters in a parameter page by holding the specific parameter key, such as source or filter, and pressing yes. Do this as many times as you wish to get random settings. You can also hold the key and press no to return to the last save state. Fill mode. Fill mode is a really cool feature when a press of a button can change the sequence on the fly. To use this, add fill conditions to particular trigs in your sequence. Now play the sequence and hold the fill button. You'll notice that those trigs will only play when the fill button is held. On the other hand, you can set fill with the line above, which inverts the action. The trigs with this condition will only play when fill is not being used. Use this to create, well, fills, drum fills. But it's also cool in case you want to add specific variations to a bass line, or maybe add a special vocal chop or sound effect at very specific times. Sound locks. Sound locks are special parameter locks that allow you to change the sound or sample using a particular trigger. This means that you're not stuck to just one sound per track. The drawback is that the sound needs to be included in the project's sound pool. To add a sound lock, press and hold a note trig and turn the level data knob to open the sound pool. Then, select the sound to be used and let go of the trigger. The trig key will flash to indicate it has a sound lock. Press and hold the trig key to check what sound it is using. Micro timing. You can fine-tune the timing of a trig. To do so, in grid recording mode, hold one or more trigs and press left or right. The micro timing menu will be shown. Now, use left and right to shift this ahead or behind the beat. You can use this on snares or claps, for example. Put them a little behind the beat to create the groovy effect. Retrigs. Do you like that hat ratchet effect, very used in trap songs? You can use retrig to have it. Just like micro timing, hold one or more trigs in grid recording mode. Now, press up or down. This will show the retrig menu. The retrig option enables or disables retriggering for these trigs. Rate sets how fast the retriggering will happen. Len will set how long these retriggers will last. And finally, Vel will set a fade out or fade in for the effect. The higher the value is, the stronger the fade will be, and it can be negative or positive depending on the type that you want. Temporary save and reload. This feature is super important for live performances. It saves the state of all parameters temporarily and allows you to go crazy with improvisation. Then you can reload the temporary state like nothing ever happened. To save state, press function and yes. Then to load it, press function and no. Do note that these saves are not definitive. They are meant to be restore points for when you want to wander off into the unknown. If you want to save, use the right command. Portable Digitakt. The Digitakt does not have an internal battery, but if you want to make beats on the go, you have options. You can buy a 9V ripcord and then use a power bank to power the Digitakt. Just be sure to buy the right cable for the Digitakt. Using the wrong cable can damage the device, so be careful. Digitakt and the DAW. Since Digitakt has MIDI over USB, you can use it together with a DAW. We know you can use it with overbridge, but you can also set different tracks on your DAW to receive MIDI from each Digitakt channel and record the MIDI data on your computer. This might be useful in case you want to use the Digitakt as a sequencer only. On the other hand, you can also create intricate sequences in a DAW and then record the MIDI directly in the Digitakt. Food for thought. Sticky keys. This can mean two things. The keys can be sticky because the rubberized texture on them has melted, or the keys are sticking to the side of a unit and take longer to come up again. For the first, there's not much you can do besides replacing the keys. For the second, some internet users mention it's easy to open the top of the unit and wiggle the keys around so they stop touching the sides. However, please look into this further and be very careful if this is your case. Level 5. The Abyss. Sliced case mod. If you want to save some space and have a more ergonomical way of using your Digitakt, you can buy a sliced case. This case places the face of the Digitakt at an angle so it's easier to see and use. If you're interested, check it out on Etsy. Faking a synth. There is a way to fake a synth with the Digitakt. If you get one-cycle waveforms and load them in the Digitakt, you can have a rudimentary synth. You can then use the filter and other parameters to shape your synth sound. Let me know what you come up with. Loopcloud Integration. I only learned this recently, but it seems there is a Loopcloud integration for Digitakt. You can use the Loopcloud app to send samples directly to the Digitakt. Have you used this before? Hacky Polyphony. It's possible to have polyphony using only the Digitakt, but it's sort of hacky. You will need a RetroKits cable, the RK002. This cable can basically take the MIDI notes from one of the MIDI tracks and then play specific audio tracks sequentially to emulate polyphony. It's complicated, but it does work. There are many videos on the subject here on YouTube in case you want to know more. Euclidean Rhythms. An Euclidean rhythm is a mathematical algorithm that allows a distribution of a certain number of beats over a specific amount of steps. The math is complicated, but you get the gist of it. The Digitakt cannot do this by itself, but the cable that I talked about, the RetroKits RK002, it has a specific feature to create these on the Digitakt. Go look it up if it sparked your interest. The magical sound. People online mention that the Digitakt has a certain magical sound. There is something about the device and how it samples that adds a certain grit and texture to the sound. What do you think? Elongated Digitakt. The Elongated Digitakt is not real. It can't hurt you. Whew! That was a long one. The longest one yet. But now, we're finally done. If you found this helpful, do subscribe. I have icebergs for other devices, and I'm planning to do more in the future. But for now, this is it. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time, and until then, just keep jamming.